The unknown, the thousand eyes of Arceus itself scattered upon the world, potentially existing before written language, changing their forms and residing within their own pocket of space, only to enter our world and communicate through radio signals and gather once more for a greater unknown purpose. They have been known to stand alongside Suicune of the Northern Winds, and they have been witnessed in a cataclysmic storm of their own kind when Arceus is approached within the Sinjoh Ruins, seemingly exploding into existence during a battle between dialga and palkia. They have reached biblical proportions of imagery, yet their secrets have been hidden away until now. For after scouring through the ancient texts of the Pokemon world and tracking down these strange, living letters, I have finally solved the unknown. Hi there, I'm Acrylic, and this idea had actually sat with me for a bit, wanting to make this video, but then not only did Lorekeeper Toby release his video, but then he encouraged the 31st to add a response video, and then of course that trickled to me being encouraged by the 31st to hop onto this 1,000 foot deep pool of water that are the unknown. But by the end of this, they will be the unknown no more. I mean, they'll still be unknown, but you know, they'll be solved. Wordplay! No stone will be left unturned today. We're gonna get deep into the mud as lore from the games, the anime, the manga, and even lore and science in our real world for me to produce to you the incredible details that I have found today. So let's begin with when they appeared and the many forms that they have appeared in. Emerging from their home dimension, passing through engravings of ancient texts, the unknown have appeared. The unknown are flat Pokemon with a singular eye in their centers. From them, an array of lines, circles, or other appendages expand from them. And yes, they are appendages. I mean, look at how this little guy likes to dance. In the games, there are 26 alphabetic forms with their eyes wide open, while the question mark and the exclamation point have their eyes half closed. There seems to be no greater significance to this, but it's definitely fun to take note of. They have been known to exist in more than just these forms, because within the games, we also see them in the form of ancient writing and hieroglyphs called unknown symbols. We can also see them being studied by Professor Oak in the anime, as some resemble Greek alphabet letters or ligature, or even resembling Cyrillic letters. To put those into context, Greek letters are thought to have been developed in 800 BC, and Cyrillic would have emerged in the 9th or 10th century, being 800 or 900 years. And then we get them appearing in Hisui, which I'll explain more on that later, but Hisui takes place at the end of the Edo period, let's say 1868. And finally, the radio tower of Goldenrod is based on the Osaka Tsutenkaku Tower, which was built in 1912, which already means that they have a pattern of significantly appearing between certain ages of time. It's not that they appear every 1,000 years like a certain Millennium Comet, just that they appear between a set period of time, those 800 to 900s, for some strange reason. And we can even confirm they stay within this range, as Laviton of Hisui stated that he had seen the unknown before, though he saw them resembling different writings from the other lands. Nobody actually took him seriously until we came along. And while he is an adult, he's not reaching the ripe, crinkly old age of 68, meaning that the unknown haven't broken their pattern. To speak on where they appear, the last time we naturally run into them in the wild is within Sinnoh itself. In other words, they only appear in the wild in gold, silver, crystal within the ruins of Alph, inside Tanabe Chambers in fire red and leaf green, the Suicune ruins of Sinnoh, and then they appear hidden throughout Sinnoh's past when it was Hisui. But why these locations? Let's start from the first currently recorded sighting of the unknown, which is in Hisui. And don't worry, we'll discuss all those fun details about their abilities and other special appearances as we go along when they become relevant. The first time we ever see an unknown chronologically is when Laviton notices the letter A unknown is stuck to our back. After noticing it, it will then fly off, and Laviton will add unknown research notes to our Pokédex. This allows us to separately keep track of the unknown we come across. From here, for every single unknown we do come across, we are given hints on how to find more of their kind. And as Toby says in his own video, it's almost as if they want to be found, as if they want to be brought back together, and I guarantee that they do. Because this is not the only time in which the Unown are trying to actively come back together with the aid of humanity. They in fact desire being together because that's when their hidden potential or their hidden power is truly unlocked. It is said that an odd power emerges when more than one Unown come together. In the Pokemon movie Spell of the Unknown, Entei, Unown is shown to be capable of reading the thoughts of other life forms, and great numbers of Unown are capable of distorting reality to suit the dreams and wishes of whoever is in control of the Unown. That idea of dreams and wishes has been here since the beginning, all the way through, even to Scarlet and Violet, interestingly enough. But back to our current topic, as this is aided through their ability to perceive the feelings of other creatures, including human beings. So they're able to understand your feelings, understand your wants and desires, and then turn that into a reality through their ability to read your mind and understand you. This was all put into effect for the character Molly, who simply wanted her mother back after she had passed away. Here, there seemed to be no real limitations to the power of the Unown. They put people into the storybooks, they distort reality itself, they take Entei and make it think that it was truly Molly's father, to the point where it was just screaming it, basically. Now, Molly is a little girl, impressionable and imaginative, and there is a storybook within the movie that bears imagery of a number of different familiar Pokemon or situations. Within the movie itself, we have Entei in a new form, which is where Molly and the Unown create their Entei from. There's a sort of hero riding upon a burst of energy in a blue world, which is what Molly brings to life through herself as she confronts Ash and Misty. An open plain that bears a fairy, who I guess you could interpret as just a fairy tale, or as some may stretch it, in my personal opinion, to be the beginning of fairy Pokemon. And just before the big interesting piece, we have a book depicting a sun god in a land of hibiscus flowers, a land very reminiscent of Hawaii, which brings about the idea that this may have inspired the eventual creation of Solgaleo, a Pokemon that represents the sun, or is worshipped as a sun god within Alola. This is not to say that Solgaleo and Alola was planned out this far in advance, but there's definitely the use of the anime here inspiring future games and lore. And this is why it's important to always look at the anime and manga, because they have little grains of truth that still tie into newer games. And the grain of truth that I chase after today, amongst many other grains of truth in this video, regards an image that is the most interesting of them all within this storybook. A depiction of a monk before a pillar of light, which is surrounded by pillars, clouds, and a collection of Unown. These Unown have every letter but one, and that is G, as Toby had discovered. I mean, there are over 26 Unown in this image, and yet there is not a single one that can be properly identified as the letter G, which is, of course, the first letter of God. Not only that, but we have this bright shining light that we have seen represent the one true Arceus as we see it in the beginning of Pokemon Legends Arceus. And then all of these pillars, which feels incredibly reminiscent of Spear Pillar before it was destroyed. All while this array of Unown are very much taking the shape of what the Throne Angel have been described as, or depicted as, mighty creatures with great wheels and eyes round about. This thing even has an eye in the absolute center of it, similar to how the throne has been depicted by some people. But what does this mean? Why a throne? Well, the throne are said to be connected to God's wisdom, divine justice, and cosmic harmony. They are seen as embodiments of divine justice and execute God's commands with precision. But most importantly, they symbolize not only the divine justice, but also limitless awareness. And so from here, we bring back the idea that both Toby and the 31st spoke on. The idea that the Unown are the eyes of Arceus. That Arceus itself may not actually be fully omniscient by itself, or at least the Arceus we know isn't. Now, let's think of every single place we find the Unown within Hisui. the Diamond Clan settlement, the Molten Arena where we witness the creation of the Noble Arcanine, the Celestica Ruins, the Misfortune Group Camp who were once part of the main teams of the game, the Grueling Grove where we are forced to encounter an Alpha Vespiquen as part of Mission 20, the ancient quarry that holds the material that was used to build the Temple of Sinnoh. We find every single unknown and a vital place within the lands of Hisui. This is not a mistake. They are nearby major groups of people. They are by entrances. They are found in major locations that involve the noble Pokemon of Hisui. They watch us from the shadows during major events. And why is that? Because they are truly watching us and the people of Hisui, and they are reporting back to Arceus. The Unown are known to communicate through one of two ways, which are said to disagree with each other, either electromagnetic waves, specifically radio waves, or telepathy. This disagreement likely exists just because radios simply were not invented yet during Hisui's time. The first working practical radio transmission system was created in the late 1980s. Meanwhile, once again, Hisui takes place at roughly 1868, and now it's time for me to actually prove it. There are three key pieces as to how we can prove this, the first of which would be looking at the Survey Corps' base and seeing that big ol' smokestack that resembles Galarian wheezing there. It represents the industrial advancement that happened after the end of the Edo period. This advancement happening at a faster rate thanks to Britain and Japan trading with each other. This was the Anglo-Japanese Treaty, but it goes much further than that, as Japan was encouraged to open its ports and trade with other nations. Without this, Laventon would just simply not have arrived in this nation, or region I do suppose. But next we can take in an unlikely Pokemon that if you're new to the channel, you would not expect to be used as any sort of proof for the time period, but we are, as we're going to talk about Hisuian Quillfish. Its dark poison typing and how it terrorizes the fisher community at large is a play on the idea of pufferfish being illegal to eat as fugu for many hundreds of years. The Tokugawa shogunate prohibited the consumption of fugu in the Edo period and its area of influence, taking place between 1603 and 1868. In addition, the Quillfish of the past would eventually adapt and become a water poison Pokemon, and it would no longer just puff up, it would just shoot its quills at those who would dare to try fish for it, and it would go away. But why the dark typing? Well, the dark typing is usually associated with underhandedness, and unfortunately for the Tokugawa shogunate, you can't tell people what they can or can't eat. I mean, look at Prohibition. So for that entire period of time, people were selling fugu in black markets, places where they could escape the shogunate's eye and punishment, and where they could illegally sell fugu to those willing to risk death for a taste of tongue-exploding umami flavor. Also, for clarity's sake, Prohibition happened well after all of this. My last piece of evidence for this time period is that towards the end of the game, Commander Kamado decides to rename Hisui into the land of Sinnoh. Sinnoh is based on Hokkaido, and in 1869, the Meiji government gave Ezo the new name of Hokkaido and implemented policies that would force the Ainu to assimilate into Wajin society. However, the unique beliefs and lifestyles of the region's indigenous Ainu people survive today, almost as if this is incredibly reminiscent of the Celestica people disappearing. They didn't just disappear, they assimilated or went off to a different land. So back to why we needed to establish the time period, we just simply needed to prove that radios did not exist at the time, and that is why Laventon thought the Unown communicated through telepathy. This allows us to get rid of that possibility and understand for sure that the Unown do communicate through radio waves. This is very important because of our encounter with them in the ruins of Alph. It is here that we not only see the Unown on the walls, but when we listen to the Pokegear, we begin to hear strange noises known as the mysterious transmission on channel 13.5. When we play this sound in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, it increases the chances of encountering an Unown we have not seen yet. And when we listen to the mysterious transmission, it plays the sound of the Azure Flute, the same flute that we use to call out to Arceus. The Azure Flute is also directly translated to be called the Heaven Flute, allowing us to access the Hall of Origin where Arceus, as we know it, resides. In other words, the Unown speak through this Azure or heavenly call, literally calling their signals out to heaven itself and communicate directly with Arceus. And somehow, our radios are able to connect to that and understand it. Now this might have you asking a very important question. Why are radio waves and heaven connected to each other? Well, I'm going to let you sit on that for just a moment as I bring to your attention the many times within the world of Pokemon where we see radio, space, and heaven being connected with one another, because there's more than just the Unown who have this connection. Dusknoir is known as our Grim Reaper of Pokemon, our Psychopomp, if you would. This Pokemon receives radio transmissions from the spirit world, which tell it to bring people there. It will then appear before those who have passed away and bring their souls into the afterlife. Though it is unknown if it has a will of its own, or if it is simply following the bidding of the transmission it receives. Then, to follow this, we also have Magnezone, who is believed to have come from outer space, especially as while in the modern age it is said people tried combining Magneton together to create it, we also see it wandering the skies of Hisui. This is only in the Coronet Highlands, which has a special magnetic field that allows Magneton and Nosepass to evolve without the use of a Thunderstone. Nevertheless, we know that the Coronet Highlands bear Mount Coronet in its land, the sacred place in which we will encounter the Origin Trio and unlock our meeting with Arceus. Magnezone even states in its Pokédex that it is receiving and sending signals from an unknown source and an unknown purpose, even while asleep. These Pokédex entries talking about it potentially originating from space and emitting these signals first appeared in a Alola's Pokédex and has continued since then. Also, what's really interesting and really fun is that while in English the Unown are spelled without a K, in Japanese it is directly translated with the K to be literally the word unknown. And yes, I know it's not capitalized in the Pokédex at any point. It would be really, really funny to consider the idea that the Unown might be sending these signals to these Pokemon and then relaying back to heaven. But I think the most prominent example of space and heaven being interconnected, so that way we can tie even that idea into this, is through what we see with Ho-Oh, Suicune, and the Unown. And you've likely already heard this story 1,000 times before. The story of the Bell and Brass Tower, towers that stood within Johto and held Lugia and Ho-Oh before the Great Tragedy. A tragedy that would burn down the Brass Tower as lightning struck it, fire erupted, and within said tower, 3 lives would be lost. Though these 3 lives would be revived after the rain put out the flames and Ho-Oh used its blessing to revive what would become, almost as through a form of reincarnation, the 3 legendary beasts. With new powerful bodies, the legendary beasts rise as what will be known as Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, my personal favorite. Now, Bell Tower was not always the only tower for Ho-Oh, and instead we would come to find out that the manager of the Goldenrod Radio Tower would tell us of its past. Because this radio tower was once a different tower, one that would house a legendary Pokemon before it was knocked down. And after you drive out Team Rocket, the director provides the Rainbow Wing, the Silver Wing, or the Clear Bell, the items needed to summon Ho-Oh in Gold, Lugia in Silver, and Suicune in the Crystal game. His most interesting direct quotes are as follows. "There used to be a tower right here in Goldenrod City, but it was old and creaky, so we replaced it with our radio tower. During the teardown, we found that at the top, I heard that giant Pokemon used to fly over Goldenrod in the past. Maybe that fell off a Pokemon. Maybe like the one that appears at Tin Tower in Ekutik, or Whirl Islands near Cyanwood. In Crystal, though, he also states, we dug up that bell during construction. I heard that all sorts of Pokemon lived in Goldenrod in the past." This is no mistake, and this stays consistent within Heart Gold till Silver. This is also the game where radio signals play a significant role with Team Rocket earlier on, as they force Magikarp to evolve into Gyarados. The last radio tower, though, I do want to talk about before we connect why all of this is connected through real-life cultural analysis, is the Pokemon Tower within Lavender Town. Within Generations 1, 3, and 7, Pokemon Tower is a 7-floor graveyard that holds the graves of departed Pokemon. people will come here to pay their respects to the fallen, but it is also a heavily populated place by the channeler-type trainers, and noted to have numerous ghost sightings, not just ghost-type Pokemon, but full-on ghosts. It's also important to note that Team Rocket was here too, but it doesn't seem as though they were focused on the undead aspect of this. They were simply looking to sell Cubone skulls for profit, which is about as gut-wrenching as it gets when you start to think about that idea for too long. These ghosts originally can't even be battled until you have the Sylph Scope, a modern-day invention that allows you to reveal their true natures and identify and allow you to battle the ghost Pokemon. The item is dropped by Giovanni himself in red, blue, green, yellow, fire red, leaf green, and the Let's Go games. This is likely just because Sylph Co. was taken over by Team Rocket, or they were working with Giovanni as they were in the manga before he betrayed them. But this shows that at least Giovanni, even if he didn't tell all of Team Rocket, was becoming keenly aware of the importance of these radio waves before he disappeared. And more than just trying to contact him through the radio waves, this may be the reason why Team Rocket captured the radio tower. Without knowing the full purpose, they just knew that Giovanni valued the idea of taking this under his control. More importantly, in the Gold and Silver games and their remakes, the tower was converted to the Kanto radio station, with all graves being moved to either the House of Memories or underground. The new House of Memories is placed where the Pokemart has been before, which in turn was moved to be next to the Pokemon Center. The Kanto radio station can be entered like its Johto counterpart, but only the ground floor, as the upper floors are completely off limits. This is said to have been done to prevent a takeover similar to the one that happened in Johto. The radio station broadcasts music and radio programs, including the Flute channel, to the radios and Pokegear of Kanto, meaning that this radio station has the potential of picking up these signals from the unknown. And while there are no additional reasons we will find for now as to why they put the radio tower here, you should find it very, very strange that they would place a radio tower in the old Tower of Ho-Oh, Lugia, and Suicune, and another radio tower where the graves of Pokemon were once held. It's almost as if they are keenly aware that through radio signals, they would be able to transcend the mortal coil and contact the heavens themselves. After all, even the director of the Goldenrod Radio Tower seems to be more concerned with their control of the tower than just the general takeover. And it's about time I stopped teasing this idea and actually explain why this is even a thing. In Eastern religions, since the Great Star of Venus is a member of the Jade Emperor's heavenly retinue in the original story of Journey to the West, and with Pokemon being Eastern in terms of its origin, we can already see the base connection. After all, there are many Pokemon such as Emboar and Infernape who are inspired by the Demon Pig, or I believe the Demon War Pig, and Sun Wukong himself from the story, let alone the many other inspirations I won't talk about here so I don't detract from this. Also, for clarification, the Heavenly Retinue is a group of divine beings who are often angels or other celestial figures. This is similar to the Divine Council we talked about earlier with the Thrones. Meanwhile, Venus is literally called the Great White Golden Star. It is the god Venus itself and is part of that Divine Council. And if you want to separate the Eastern philosophy from this for some reason, we still may call any natural object existing in space outside of Earth's atmosphere celestial bodies. This includes stars, planets, moons, asteroids, and even comets themselves. And if you watch anime, the first time you were probably introduced to this idea was when Goku passed away in Dragon Ball Z. He travels along Snake Way, falls into Hell, or Hiffle if you watch the censored versions, and even after being revived, he could still visit the planet of King Kai, who he had first met in the afterlife. And what's fun is that I've kind of hinted at it, is that the closer you are to space, standing atop the mountains, the closer you are to heaven. And through Old Verse 16 of Pokemon Legends Arceus, we get the following, confirming these connections one more time. Heaven's crown, nearest to Almighty Sinnoh. Power of Almighty Sinnoh. Gather as stone at heaven's mount. Stone, let your power flow. distort, and bend the world around you. Mountains. They are the closest to space, and as such, they are the closest we humans can get to the heavens without flying. And through this, Heaven's Mount is Mount Coronet, while the peak, of course, is where Spear Pillar was erected. It is leading up to this peak that we also see exactly what it says, statues carved in the shapes of the noble Pokemon. And we'll talk more about the noble Pokemon later on. Also find one more very interesting detail that may or may not be true, may or may not be intentional, but it does tie how the Unown play their role, told through their base stat total. The Unown are the only creature with the base stat total of 336. These base stat totals have told us stories before, like Whirlipede being a wheel and having 360, a full circle, as its base stat total, or all the Ultra Beasts having the same total excluding Poipole and Naganadel, who are also seen as kind of like the starters of Ultra Space. So what does 336 mean? Well, considering their relation to Arceus, I immediately thought of angel numbers. Numbers that are rumored in our world to be signs from the angels themselves to us. Messages that may tell us about disaster or fortune on the horizon. So what does 336 apparently mean? Well, number 3 brings its energies of self-expression and communication, optimism and enthusiasm, skills and talents, friendliness and sociability, growth, expansion, and the principles of increase, manifesting, and manifestation. That last part being incredibly important, as this can be shown through the Unown becoming the most common alphabet of the age. They are a form of communication. They seek out each other, and they literally manifest things into existence when they are together. When expressed to the fullest, number 33 of 336 focuses upon the spiritual uplifting of mankind. This one is very interesting because you might think Pokemon don't care about humanity, that they are meant to overthrow us and we have to fight back, we have to be number one, but we can understand through the old verses of Hisui that this is not the case. When first this land was formed, man and Mon lived happily, sharing all that they could see by kind acts, born and warmed. One Pokemon then proposed that they should always ready be, to help humans should they need, and let their presence be disclosed. And that is why, to this day, not all Pokemon do flee when a human they do see. They leap out where tall grasses sway. The one Pokemon is not a singular random Pokemon. There is a reason the word one starts that line in this verse, because it is the Great One, Arceus, who stated that Pokemon should always be ready to help humans in need and to openly show that they are there, which is why Pokemon are said to jump out of grass at us. But this isn't to mean every Pokemon is forced to be under us, but rather that they are to be our equals, that they are to test our resolve, our wisdom, intelligence, and willpower. This is why every time we encounter a Pokemon, we battle and aim to catch them as they break out of each Pokeball. But even after we catch them, it doesn't mean that they are our friend. It is still up to humanity to prove that they see Pokemon as equals and they will treat them right. This is incredibly vital because by understanding this, we understand another reason why the Unown are watching. Because people are terrified of Pokemon in the age of Hisui. And while the noble Pokemon are sent by Arceus to help protect humanity, as we read through verses 3 and 4, there is still inequality through fear and power. So the question Arceus had is, what would happen if these scales were balanced? Could humanity become equals with Pokemon? And the answer is yes and no, because thankfully, the Unown were watching and would witness the truth about Volo. They would find that Volo was preparing to commit great atrocities alongside Giratina in order to overthrow Arceus, putting both humanity and Pokemon at risk. But instead of judgmenting them into oblivion, Arceus decided to grab us. It decided to pull another human into the past, one who had already befriended Pokemon and potentially even already completed the Pokédex. They pull us, the player character, from the future and launch us into the past to serve as the opposite to Volo, to serve as a final test and as the one who can save both humans and Pokemon.
our actions are supposed to be part of the spiritual uplifting of mankind. And while yes, there's a lot of spiritual or religious talk here, I just want to say that you don't need to be spiritual to make a positive impact on the lives of others. In the end, that's the true message and purpose here, because even if these are just stories, they hold a purpose. But how about we continue our talk on this heavenly number? Because number 6 relates to providing and provision, possessions, status, and the monetary aspects, service and domesticity, love of home and family, caring and nurturing, responsibility and reliability, honesty and integrity. And honestly, there's not a lot more to say there. It simply refers back to everything we have already spoken about. Meanwhile, angel number 336 brings a message of reassurance that your material and monetary needs will be met as you serve your life purpose and fulfill your spiritual destiny. This is all as though the unknown are the message from Arceus itself. And even if it is a coincidence between this and adding in the biblically accurate unknown in the Spellavente movie, it is far too much of a coincidence. And if you want a continued deep dive into those old verses, I have a video called The Divine Truth that I highly recommend. It's one of my top favorite videos on this channel and truly reveals the purpose of Pokemon while also digging into how every evil team is connected and the secret reason why they all failed. In Generation 2, Unown's shape is determined by its individual values. In Gen 3, it is determined by its personality value, and from Gen 4 onwards, it is determined by a separate form identifier. And in Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, we had the Unown Report, where as you captured the Unown in the ruins of Alph, you would learn more about them. You would see that the Unown would correspond with words such as A for anger, V for vanish, which to me feels a little bit arbitrary. It didn't feel like it actually bled into anything else or anything greater. But as we work with the researchers in this area, we find that we have awakened the Unown in the ruins. The floor itself had etched into it these symbols, and those symbols said, "Our friends look up and heartily congratulate us." And as they look further into this, into the unknown, into these ruins, they find that in the past, the Unown lived with relatives of humans in these ruins. In the lower levels of these ruins is a Pokemon statue. We've come to understand that it was those relatives who made that statue. The Unown are very timid creatures, so they don't go outside of the ruins. Even if a bunch of people gathered near them, it is said that the ones who wished for Unown and humans to again coexist have all left. Unfortunately then, this means that the Unown and their absence in future games is simply due to them being timid. They no longer see the humans that wanted to coexist with them until we arrive, as yet once again, Lamiton and ourselves as the player character are able to find them, whether that be in one generation or another, for we are seen as people who want to coexist with Pokemon. Now I get the honor of talking about my third favorite Pokemon of all time, Suicune. And if you wonder what my top favorites are, all you have to do is actually look at my intro and outro screens. But back to Suicune, it's not only depicted to be running alongside the Unown in the Pokemon Crystal intro, but they are also stated to share a cooperative bond with each other. It is more specifically stated, of the legendary Pokemon, Suicune is said to be the closest to Ho-Oh. I hear there may also be a link to Pokemon known as Unown. The Pokemon Unown must be sharing a cooperative bond with Suicune, which is incredibly fascinating because of the legendary beasts, Suicune is stated to represent the rain that fell upon the tower, the absolute deluge that doused the flames on that fateful night. In addition, Suicune represents pure spring water and the northern winds which blow stronger in its presence. When we look into the symbolism of this, not only do the northern winds represent destruction and cleansing, but it also represents renewal and new beginnings. The exact things that happened to the legendary beasts thanks to Ho-Oh's revival of them. But again, they weren't just revived, they were made into completely new Pokemon, given seemingly new bodies, especially if you follow the theory that the evolutions became these Pokemon. So that makes it fairly clear as to why Suicune and Ho-Oh are close together, but why are the Unown cooperating with Suicune? Well, Suicune may very well be a symbol of holy water. After all, it perfectly purifies any water with a single touch, though this feels a little bit too loose of a connection for me to be just satisfied with that. So instead, when we look at the manga, that Unown G is given special treatment. And I won't name every single time the letter of Unown or this letter of Unown appears, but it's very, very intentional. In the Gold, Silver, and Crystal arc, Bugsy returns to the ruins of Alph and catches Unown G, giving it to his colleagues. And as he searches for Suicune, he finds 2 chambers with unknown symbols. One of the words he finds there simply saying, Ho-Oh. Now, Ho-Oh represents a lot of things, but the most important here is its ties to the Phoenix and revival as a whole. More than this, Ho-Oh has had a lot of strangely symbolic and significant appearances. It appears in the opening of a number of movies, such as Jirachi Wishmaker, where it is the first Pokemon we see. It's in Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, The Rise of Darkrai, Arceus and the Jewel of Life, and Zoroark, Master of Illusions. More importantly, though, or more specifically, not only does Mew transform into a Ho-Oh in the Lucario movie, but they both appear flying through space in the Darkrai movie, coming from opposite ends. Then, in the Zoroark movie, it is technically the first to appear alongside other legendary Pokemon above golden clouds. Those golden clouds being another symbol of heaven. And while there are some minor Pokemon below them, each Pokemon is related to Ho-Oh or is a Pokemon associated with space. Rayquaza, the 3 legendary birds, Deoxys. And if there was simply 1 or 2 instances of this, I would mark it up as a coincidence of, outlier if you would. But this is definitely no coincidence at this point. This is a deliberate, constant choice, one that allows us to easily connect Unown, Suicune, Ho-Oh, Heaven, and Arceus itself together through their symbolism that they all share with one another. An interesting bit about the Unown is the possibility that they are literally the code to all of existence. When we see Dialga and Palkia clash, their interaction produces an explosion of Unown that bursts through what we assume is space. Though this could theoretically be anywhere, because Dialga and Palkia can create and destroy time and space. They can exist outside of or within time and space. They can create and destroy entire universes, and without either of them, none of it exists. This is because they are the embodiment of space and time through the gift of Arceus itself. It is described that when Palkia was created, the universe's walls fell and now expand infinitely. With every breath that it takes, the universe itself becomes more stable. For Dialga, time started moving when it was born and will continue to as long as its heart beats. And the only time in which they fight is when their dimensions intersect. Strangely enough, we know that the Unown have their own dimension, and if time and space colliding means these two fight, and them fighting resulted in an explosion of Unown, then the Unown themselves are what may have existed prior to these legendary Pokemon. This would explain why when we meet Arceus in the Sinjoh Ruins, we see the Unown swirl about all of us in that room, why they are present in this space where we see more than just the first egg, or even are gifted an egg that would then turn into Palkia, Dialga, or Giratina, but we also see reality as we know it, not as the people of the Pokemon world see it. We get real visuals of the real world. This even brings about another idea. As we know, Game Freak exists within the world of Pokemon. You're able to visit their headquarters in multiple games. They talk about their development of the game, what Pokemon they created, and there are even special locations within the world that are modeled after hardware that is used to make up the physical copy of the game you're playing. So maybe the G Unown is given special treatment not just for God, but also for Game Freak. I'll also say now that the Unown with the most cards is the V Unown, as it is also the only one to currently have the V-Star form, which of course is pretty clever, especially when we take into account that V is a sign for victory in Japan, something that you may have become familiar with thanks to Victini. They also make this joke in Super Mystery Dungeon, as the quote for V is, "I'm V, V for victory." Meanwhile, I have to note, weirdly enough, the question mark unknown gets a little bit existential, having a miniature crisis, if you would, as it states, "I've had this question throughout my life. What is this thing called life?" Which we may know that answer. There is the possibility that the unknown truly are the code of the world, literally or metaphorically, which might even play into that even more when we look at the color of their shiny. It's blue, like a hyperlink, a digital reference providing direct access to data, though instead of just data, they are the link between Pokemon, us in the game, and us as the player of these games. The unknown always grant us a message, though the last messages they give to us in the timeline is one that ties everything together. Their abilities when they are together, their messages from Arceus, and even the message from the creators of Pokemon to us as players. In the Tanabe Ruins, we can only access the unknown once we have solved a puzzle. In the Japanese version, the chambers in the Tanabe Ruins are all named after the Haru no Nanakusa, or the 7 flowers of spring that are traditionally eaten at the start of the new year to ward off evil spirits and promote good health. A gift, a hope for goodness, a wish for a better world to ward off those spirits and for us to be healthy, not just physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever other way you could really think of. But further than this, further into the future, the last time we see them is in the Suicune Ruins. And what's their last message? The last message the unknown have directly given us since that time? Friendship. All lives touch other lives to create something new and alive. The unknown have a friendship, a bond, something that is born when they are all brought together. As their lives touch other lives, they can literally create something new and alive. When you listen to this, when you talk to others, when you form bonds, you create something new and alive, but intangible. You create what the unknown are trying to create with each other, with Arceus, with Pokemon and humans. You create a community. And this next part is a little bit more philosophical, and it might get a little bit into my emotions here, but I find it to be appropriate. Because whether you are an artist, a scientist, a historian, medical expert, a student, or whatever else, and you let yourself become a part of something much larger than yourself, you bring to life this intangible thing. You unlock your own hidden power, and you change reality as you know it, just in a less literal sense than the unknown do. But nevertheless, you do it. And just know that even in my own experience through this channel, all of you watching, the comments and support, that you have helped me create Krillic, this embodiment, this channel into existence, something new and alive. And I thank you for that with all my heart. And I do want to say thank you to all the other PokeTubers that I've begun to really been able to interact with. It means more than I could ever really truly express in words, as I have redone this part about 4 or 5 times because I tear up, or I can't find the words that I'm trying to say because there are no words that I can say. There's not enough thanks out there that I can give. All I can do is continue being a part of this community and making silly videos about all of this and trying to teach people science and history and whatever little bit of culture that I can find, because it's fun and it's amazing and I love feeling as connected as I do. And if you've made it this far, it feels weird to say this after such an emotional piece, at least to me, is if you've made it this far, please make sure you subscribe. We're really close to 20,000 subscribers, which is a stupid, ridiculous number that I would never truly understand ever at any point in my life, but it is amazing to see. In addition, if you'd like to freely assist the channel, then leave a comment, tell me your favorite Pokemon, the story behind it, or even any thoughts, any other theories that I didn't talk about regarding the unknown, any arguments or anything that you have in support of this idea, which comments and watch time are the #1 way to assist the channel and help boost the reach of a video, as said by YouTube itself. And if you'd like to go the extra mile, you can always become a member of the channel for as little as $3 a month on YouTube or Patreon, and that money goes towards commissions, for art, for thumbnails, such as for what is going to be created for the next video, which should be the Pokemon Lentil Region Ecology. Also, then I could probably get a teleprompter so that way I can more easily look at the camera while talking the entire time. So, know that your money goes to a good cause. Either way, I do want to end this video with thanking all of the members of the channel. A thank you to all of our members of the channel, starting with the Gods of Hope, Crow, Final Fantasy 14, Heals for Life, Biggins, Vanny, Knit, Buzz, and Summer, then all of our champions, Andrew, Mercy, Costa, and Joshua Biggins Wilson, then the Knights of the Court, Panda, Luke Sasti, Crumbo, Moth Romance, Double, Shiny Gem, Sarah, Boys, Vandy Lemon, Fix My Outro, Code, Final Fantasy 14, Plow, Annie, Stone, Allen, Heals for Life, Warren, Hemphill, and Blue Dalek. I wrote that in the wrong order, and oopsie poopsies. Then the Wanderers, Zakai, Inferno, Twitch, Lydia Marie, I Like BLT, Dennis Garcia, Lion Clan, Nathan Palmer, Sophie Favark, the Haichi, Kristen Cab, Cliff, Micah, Daniela 808, Roger McLean, Supporty Boy, Kamutalk 123, Star S, Venny Samaru, Max Supreme, Surfer, Sin, Zanzibar, Smarter Cheese, Shy, Floriana 16, Minna, Azalea, Pyro Master, J Gill, Reckless, Sensa, Nate, Prime 90s, Nebula Games, Jenna M, None of Your Business, Wee, Ezra, Rowan, Frady, Brock Baker, Zippin Pigeon 80, Abby Higgs, Adrian CS, Amanda Masticola, 3 Ronan, Space Lozzie, Sadler, Rankin, Abdallah Lottie, to Marco, Gaming Ruse, Mr. Diagonal Yips, Night Owl 707, Evil Chan, Ruby, Soft and Kai, Micah 626 Gaming, Nicole Manassian, Kristen Sandwich Boss, Emmy, whatever this is, the Sporty Yamper, Michael Stein, Alolan Figment, Lost Rosaria, Managos, TH73, Spurgalicious, Sydney House, Mizora, Dakota Couch, Brad Sundheimer, Drixel, Carl Jean, Hunter, Al Hussein, Kassam, Rebecca, Colin Kuhn, Jappy W, Memento Mortem, Marshy, Edward Kasowski, Fennica Fox, Nerder, Screeberg, Hagata Cadabra, King Pie, Jack Frost, Ratchet, Snivy, Annie C, Jacob Square, DJ Monk 23, Squidwater, Rice Smith, Gamer, Bad Dragonite, Just J, M, MD, Horse with a Cocktail, Muse, Art World, to Lumio, Gwendolyn, Eastgander, 072, Andrew Frost, Peak Anonymous, Summon, Sloth, Nuck, Nguyen, Ian Ray, Big and C Night, Corner of the God, Michael Vale, Unseelie King, Performing Skies, Daniel Tracy, Grayard Hoffman, Dylan Peters, Malachi Burkhardt, and Heather Wisenett. Thank you all for being members of the channel. It supports the channel in more ways than you could ever imagine. If you'd like to hear your name at the end of every single video in the credits, then become a member for as little as $3 a month and become a Wanderer. I know this was a short video all in all, but I'm gearing up for the Lentil video, which should be a real nice and long one. Plus, I was excited to get this one out. So, again, thank you so much for watching. And as always, don't do anything I want to do. Don't think I would do. Please be nice to each other. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye! I don't think all that was in the green screen.